I wrote about that in my life and hits, which I spent 10 years on the NASCAR circuit, first as a sports writer, then as a publicist. And I think I learned my most important lessons in life on that circuit. I learned lessons in risk-taking, generosity, kindness. I dated a guy by the name of Alan Kawicki. Alan Kawicki came onto the circuit. He came from Milwaukee and he was educated. Nobody else was educated. He had a master's degree in mechanical engineering. And Alan was very somber, very boring. I would run up to him. You've never seen a contrast more than me and Alan Kawicki. And I'd run up to him and I said, Alan, I have got the funniest story to tell you. Wait till I tell you this. And he'd go, I went, but don't worry, I will tell you when to laugh. Because Alan never laughed. One day we came out of the press room in Atlanta. We were walking up through there, and the fans were lined up outside the chain link fence. And there were these two women, and they were pretty interesting looking women. It's what we used to call pit losers. And they were hanging under the fence, and as we walked by, they went, hey! When y'all go in there, if you see Alan Kawicki, will you tell him we're out here waiting for him? And Alan and I stopped and looked at him, and she said, he'll know, just tell him we're here. And Alan walks over to them, and he goes, I'm Alan Kawicki. They said, no. You ain't Alan Kawicki. You too little to be Alan Kawicki. And Alan said, no, I really am Alan Kawicki. They went, no, we met Alan Kawicki at a bar last night. And he's big and tall. And I started laughing because immediately I knew what had happened. I knew that probably one of the drivers had been out and they told him he was Alan Kawicki. But Alan didn't get it. He never got the joke. And Alan would go ahead, Ronda, tell him. I said, no, this really is Alan Kawicki. And about that time, I just happened to glance over this woman and goes, look, there's Alan Kawicki over there now. And we look over and it's Michael Waldron. I was about 6'4", and immediately I knew what happened. I knew that he had been at some bar and told them that he was Alan Kawicki. So I left Alan to contend with him, and I went over to Michael and I said, they're looking for you over there. And he went, he knew he was called. But Alan was so serious, everything. But the one thing I learned from Alan Kawicki was to never give up. Because Alan had come into NASCAR, he'd run ASA in Milwaukee. He was a great success there. And he came into NASCAR and he was about to lose everything he had. I'd seen Mark Martin do that when he first came into sport, went completely bankrupt, left the sport, made money and came back. And I was afraid it was going to happen to Alan. And we go out to dinner, we ate on coupons all the time. He had Quincy's Steakhouse with his sponsors. We always had to go to Quincy. And I was saying, Alan, just go back to Milwaukee. He goes, no, I'm going to figure it out. I can't give up. He drove a Ford Thunderbird, and he was such an underdog that they called the car the Underbird. And Alan, I can remember him wrecking the only car he had, and almost being near tears. But he hung in there, and he kept coming back, and he kept fighting. 3 years after he'd been in sport, he won his first race. His 4th year, he won 2 races. In his 5th year, he won the championship. And 3 months later, he was killed in a plane crash flying into Bristol, Tennessee. Alan was always afraid of flying. He was always scared. But he died in a plane crash after reaching the pinnacle. But the thing is that even when all the odds were against him, even when he was near bankruptcy, even when nobody encouraged him to stay, he stayed and he fought and he won. And that's what happens if you don't give up. In my NASCAR book, I tell other funny stories, but Bill Elliott was a great friend of mine. And I really was brought along in the sport by the Elliots. Well, I was working in Indianapolis, and I was working for a guy who owned a NASCAR team. And he said, I want to send you down to Georgia on the company jet, and I want you to talk Bill Elliott into coming to drive for us. I'll pay you whatever it takes. So I was 24 years old. I'm flying home to Gainesville on this private layer, coming over the lake, surrounded by Louis Vuitton luggage. And I am feeling very good about myself. So the plane lands. Bill flies in a little single-engine plane, he's in his work clothes, covered in grease. He comes running out, and he said, "Hey, did you get us a rental car?" And I went, "Oh no," because we'd rented a conference room. And I went, "Oh no," and he said, "Don't worry, I got a car I keep here." So he runs over the desk, gets the keys. It's July, it's 100 degrees, the humidity is dripping. He goes running out, I follow him, and he runs out to the Chevrolet Impala. It used to be running, but it had faded. And there were spots of it that had just rusted, complete holes in it. And it had a vinyl top on it, remember vinyl top? And it peeled all the way back. Worst looking car you've ever seen. I dropped my Louis Vuitton luggage, and I said, "What is that?" He said, "That's my car." And I said, "Well, I am not riding in that." He said, "Well, you can just suit yourself. You can ride in this car, or you can walk." And I thought about what would happen if I didn't come back with him signed. So I got in the car, and springs popping out of the seats. I get in, he said, "You're going to have to roll down the windows because this car ain't got no air conditioning." I rolled the windows down. We pull out, he said, "I'm out of gas." So he pulled into the gas station. In those days, Elliott and Ford were synonymous. Everybody knew there was immense loyalty to Ford. They only drove Fords. They were rabid Ford fans. So he gets out to pump gas at the back of the car, and I go in to get a newspaper. And as I'm coming out the door looking at the headlines of the newspaper, I see this guy get out of his car. And as he gets out of his car, he comes along and he goes, and Bill just happened to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated that week. And he went, and he didn't know what to say. And he stepped back and he said, "Bill Elliott." And Bill looked up at him and grinned, and he said, "I thought you only drove Fords." Bill didn't miss a lick. He said, "I do. This ain't my car. It's hers."